Let me get right down to it here. I wanted essentially start with the Ember 2 Inferno package that you guys just put out in December. Um, First off, I gotta say, I caught you guys, I think, what was it, November, on this tour with Sabaton. And, I thought, on paper, it's a little different, touring with a band like this. But I mean, you guys really seemed to pull this off and, even excel at this package of, two really different styles of metal. I mean, looking back on this current tour, what were your thoughts on that?
It was amazing, and it was just like the story I was telling from stage every day, that as soon as Silence in the Snow, the song, was released, we started seeing Sabaton shirts in our crowd everywhere. We were already very aware of that band, and we were already fans of that band. Having toured like European festivals a lot, we'd seen them, became fans of the band through that. So we said that we really felt it was a sign. And we're like, man, it seems like Sabaton fans get Trivium now through Silence in the Snow having more of a direct connection with the same bands where Sabaton would have gotten their origins from. Bands like Maiden, Priest, Dio, Rainbow, Sabbath, that kind of thing. So once we saw that interest in their fans, it was as easy as our management contacted their management. The band also expressed interest. Then we were able to meet each other at the festival we're on and talk about the idea. And the band loved the idea of touring with us, and we loved the idea of touring with them. So it was as easy as communicating, which was fantastic. And yeah, I think when we first announced it, people were a little surprised. But I don't feel that we're that different. I think what's really cool about a band like Trivium is that we can go out on tour with a band like that, but also tour with a band like, when we did the In Wave cycle, we toured with, across all of North America, 4 different tours. We did Dream Theater, Asking Alexandria, Five Finger Death Punch, and In Flames, all in the same record cycle, and it all worked. And I don't know what it is about our band that makes us able to jump between subgenres and be able to tour with different bands or play different festivals. So we played an all-extreme metal festival in Europe, and the next day played more of like traditional metal / rock festival the following day, and it all seems to work.
Sure. Yeah, that expanding upon that, that's one of the cool things that I've noticed after going to shows for so many years and just talking to a lot of people about, metal and just heavy music in general. It seems to me like it's a lot less marginalized with fans than it used to be. I mean, there were, you take a band, I'm into a band called August Burns Red, which, they're more of the, I guess you could call it metalcore or whatever, but I mean, they're a heavy band.
Oh, yeah,
They cross over.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about, metal fans today. They really seem like you mentioned, a band like Dio. They could be a Dio fan and August Burns Red fan. And I mean, have you noticed that as your career has progressed?
I mean, we've seen it go back and forth, and I think it is good to have both sides of it. Like, we do push that there should be acceptance, or be able to check out different genres of bands. And I'm able to come from both sides of it. I remember when I was like 15, 16 years old, that's when I was at my most elite metal stage. That's where I really just listened to black metal. I wasn't into bands that were popular. I didn't want anyone to know my favorite band. So basically, I'm the kind of kid that wouldn't like Trivium. So I was that, having been that kind of kid myself. But I have also seen the other side of it, where we'll play festivals like Bakken Open Air or Bloodstock, or these more metal-driven festivals, Summer Breeze. But that's where things start to cross over, and it gets great. You'll have a black metal band playing one stage, a hardcore band playing another stage, and where fans are able to cross-pollinate and see the different bands and realize that they're all filming essentially the same thing. So I think that it's important to know what you like and don't like, but it's equally as important to check everything out firsthand and see what it is you could potentially like about it. Me, nowadays, I have a completely open mind to everything. I will absolutely check everything out. If it's not for me, it's not for me, but if it's of the metal world, I think it's a band's responsibility to definitely help other bands out. I think that the bigger metal bands in the world, it is their responsibility to help their genre out by bringing out those bands. Instead of, you see some heavier bands get a little bit bigger, and they'll just bring out generic touring rock bands that everyone else brings out. Where I think it'd be much more important and much more helpful to the scene to bring out metal bands, bring out bands that are doing great. And we know Sabaton had a big fan base. We know they have a very dedicated fan base, but we also knew that a lot of our newer Trivium fans, our older fans would know who they are, but our newer Trivium fans wouldn't know who they are. Our fans that maybe gotten into us through Silence of the Snow on the other spectrum, like with Until the World Goes Cold, definitely got some more rock fans into our band, where Silence of the Snow got the traditional metal fans back into the band. So it's cool to be able to do that. And it can't always be planned, but it's nice to see when there's that intermingling of styles and ideas.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, getting back to the Ember to Inferno release, which is, I think it's one of those packages that fans especially appreciate more than anything else, more than critics, more than, sales, however you want to term that. I mean, it really digs deep to the heart of the band, where you came from and the evolution. Tell me about putting this package together and, why was now the right time to package this up?
I received the rights back to Ember to Inferno a couple of years ago, maybe it's 2.5 years ago now. And as I got it back, I did say online, hey, Ember will be coming back. It was difficult to find it. Basically, when Ember first came out, I feel like it was cursed. When it first came out, the distribution wasn't set in a way that on release day, I could not find the CD in my home state, which was quite a drag. It's pretty depressing not being able to find the record that you just realized was signed and you couldn't find it anywhere. When they fixed the distribution about a year later, that's when Ascendancy came out. So Ascendancy really eclipsed the release of Ember to Inferno. Ember never really got its fair shot of a release. So when I got the record back, I said to myself, I wanted to re-release this and figure out the right platform. I was wrestling in my head with potentially another label or something, and our management company proposed to me that it would take time, but they said that I should act as the label for Ember and have a distribution deal with the company. So it took 2 years. But eventually I was able to release the record to a company called Cooking Vinyl. And it was nice to be able to be like the label myself and have Cooking Vinyl do all the hard work as far as like getting promo together and releasing the thing and printing the CD and getting the distribution on the streaming formats. I knew I wanted to do the album in two ways. One way was to release Ember exactly the way it was, completely unchanged, original artwork, original everything, not remixed, not remastered, not changed that initial moment in time of what Ember was. But I also wanted to have a version that packaged up the best of the best of everything from around that era, from the beginning of Trivium all the way up until the minutes before people were familiar with Trivium and want to send it to me. So that's what ab initio means. Ab initio in Latin means from the beginning, and the plan was to teach the world where we came from the very beginning to the moments before they were familiar with us.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you what, just looking at the package, it came out, beautiful, especially the vinyl. I mean, what are your thoughts on, obviously vinyl is a very big thing in all genres of music right now. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's amazing the vinyl's come back, and I think what's really cool about the way music is now. I just watched the documentary Soundpicking, which is something I highly recommend everyone to watch. The final episode is about the mediums on which we listen to music have evolved, how it started on very primal forms of vinyl, which I believe was like 4.5 minutes per side, and that's all it was. And how it just keeps going up. I think it went to vinyl, and then it went to a more convenient but less sound quality version with tape and kept going up and back. And I think that nowadays, where it's basically vinyl or streaming, I think that's the best of both worlds. With the streaming end of it, it's the most convenient, most travelable. Me being a person that travels so much, it'd be impossible to travel with a record player. Impossible. It's very difficult to travel. The idea of CDs or an iPod can never really keep up anymore because you have to put it on your computer. So things like Spotify and vinyl, those are the two main sources where I listen to music, and it's like the best audio quality is on vinyl. And I feel like the streaming world is as good as CD, sometimes as good as vinyl, perhaps with the right system. So it's nice to have that duality of classic and contemporary. And you mentioned the packaging. Yeah, that's the big thing with me. I feel with Trivium, we were always very into making sure the visuals were great. Even Ember to Inferno, I felt the art was good. Ascendancy was great. There were things we gradually figured out over the years. Like In Waves is where we figured out our photo style, our music video style, stage style. The rest of the stuff we hadn't quite figured out yet. And with ab initio, I knew it had to be great. I thought, what would I want to see as a fan, and what can be different? And unfortunately, the only person that doesn't get credit on this record is the person who put the whole packaging together. The person that did that is my wife, Ashley, who's a graphic designer. What she did is we got the new Trivium logo from Christoph Spagel, the one that did the Emperor logo and a lot of classic black metal bands. We had him do a Trivium logo. The photography in the back is by John Paul Douglas. He did all of In Waves packaging, all of Silence of the Snows packaging. So he did a photo of what looks semi-similar to what the Ember to Inferno's original thing was. So it was a revamp of what Ember to Inferno was. And when Ashley showed me the black metal logo with like kind of rainbow color behind it on white, I said to myself, I'd never seen a black metal logo like that. I'd never seen a black metal logo in rainbow colors on white. So it followed that whole theme of juxtaposition with Trivium, how Trivium has always been doing things that are unexpected or likes to put things that are unexpected next to each other. And I felt that was the embodiment of that with that cover and the packaging.
Right. No, it really is, visually very pleasing. But I was going to move on to the Ascendancy record, Matt. I mean, obviously, moving on from the Ember to Inferno release, that was the one that, you guys went with Roadrunner, and it really took you to another level. I mean, what was your headspace like at that time? Did you feel like the band was really, moving as you intended it to? Or, what was your musical headspace like at that time?
Both times, I remember being excited. We still had the same goal. The goal's been the same since we were 12, to be the kind of metal band that can play to countless people around the world everywhere. But with both records, with Ember to Inferno and Ascendancy, we didn't have fans yet for either record. So we just made the kind of music we wanted to hear. I don't know if we were making the kind of music we felt was missing. We just were trying to create something that we hadn't heard before that we would like as fans of metal and fans of music. And that's something that I feel like at all the rough times when we made something great, it's when we went into it with that attitude to make something that we want to hear as fans of music. And that was the mentality going into Ascendancy. It was let's make what we want to hear as a band. And it was really great for me being able to, like, having to listen to everything from Ab Initio and having to trace back to each of these early records. I could see that Trivium we've only grown and only evolved in the band that we are. Like the Red album, Blue, Yellow, Ember, Ascendancy, we don't sound like a completely different band. Yes, Red sounds a little bit more just true thrash band, but it does have those elements of things that you can expect later on from Trivium. So it's nice to see the blueprint. The blueprint has always been there. We weren't, I don't know, like a ska band at first. We're a new metal band at first. We were always a metal band that liked to incorporate different things and was, the classic bands that I was into was obviously the main influence on the Red record with like Metallica, Pantera, Megadeth, Testament, Slayer. But Blue is where we're getting heavily into melodic death metal and a little bit into some metalcore. Ember is where we're getting into bands like Caliban, Heaven Shall Burn, Converge, more metalcore bands being added into that influence of melodic death metal and traditional metal. And then Ascendancy is where even more influence was able to be brought in. And I think it was great. I'm really happy with looking back at Ember. I used to think it was just Ascendancy Junior, but it's really not. It's a very different album from Ascendancy, and now we have 7 records that are pretty different from each other, which is a cool feat.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that too. Actually, that a lot of the black metal influences that you've had. I mean, obviously, some people that don't know about those influences, they're going to listen to Trivium, which is a sound that's essentially more accessible than that stuff is. I mean, was there a clear line between you say being the next Izon, between bringing that stuff into Trivium, and was there ever a line where you thought about making Trivium more of an ambient, darker Norwegian type feel, if you will?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've definitely toyed with it, and that's why with every record they've been so different from the previous ones where we try out different things. That is probably, like audio-wise, the least heard influence, black metal. But it's there. It's peppered throughout very, very subtly. Like on To Burn the Eye on I think the Ember to Inferno version, there is like the black metal minor chord style right before the breakdown, which is something that you would never really hear that. You'd never hear black metal chords before a metal chord breakdown, which I think is cool to mix those two worlds that really you wouldn't think. That goes back to one of your earlier questions about, bringing in different diversity as far as lineups of metal bands go. Skyline Separate, that was written with like black metal chords in mind. There's a second of it on Interest in the Conflagration, but it's been very minimal. I think the way black metal has been influential to me is more through Al Ishan and with Emperor, how every record was very different from the previous, and they always pushed outside of themselves in the genre, and each one was very different from the previous. I mean, Nine Equilibrium is nothing like Anthems to Welcome at Dusk, and they're all very different from Prometheus and very different from Nightside within black metal, though. So that's probably the way it's influenced the most. Whereas I guess you can hear a little bit more death metal than black metal in our band. But who knows? I mean, maybe there'll be someday where those influences start sonically making sense in the band. But those have been the most minimal of the sound ingredients in our band.
Right. Going back to seeing you guys live, one of the, as a guitar geek myself, I mean, watching you and Corey just, interweaving together is really a very cool thing. I'm a fan of that great, tipped and downing tandem thing. And I mean, I'm curious, how did you guys ever plan, sit down and specifically plan on having a style that really melded, or do you just, work off of each other? How does that work guitar-wise?
Originally, when he first joined right before Ember, it was something where it just melded, where we didn't really have a set plan for it. We just play, and things were as they were. But as the years went, we started noticing what the natural tendency was me to do more of the melodic stuff and Corey to do more of the shreddy stuff. So we started speaking of it, I think it must have been around maybe Shogun, maybe in Waves, but so on Shogun I was still pretty heavily into the shreddy stuff, which I still jump in every once in a while, and Corey does stay melodic every once in a while, but I think we've realized what our natural strengths are, and we play to those now. So maybe it was on In Waves, where I said, hey Corey, I'm going to go more for this melodic style, as I've always joked and called it dad soloing style. It's like, kind of like that blues rock, 60s, 70s style pentatonic lead playing, which
sure.
I call dad rock, dad metal, or dad shred. And Corey goes more to that super shredding territory, but we both like to do what both of us do. I think that's what it's been more about, like just playing to each other's natural strengths that were there, and then it sort of became the formula.
Well, what's cool too, I have to ask you about the brand new drummer in Alex. I mean, I'm a fan of the last Battlecross record, which he played on, and what do you think Alex is going to bring to the band?
I mean, as far as the whole drumming thing goes, as we've seen posts a little bit about it, what I feel we need to clarify is that the last three drummers, when we played with Nick, Madero, Paul, everyone has been a session drummer for our band. The band has been Corey, Paulo, and myself since the beginning. And as far as the rumors go, the players with us now, I mean, I always like to push with people that the last time we had an official band member who was a drummer of this band was Travis. And while we absolutely wish him well and things for him, he's not with us anymore. And that's because of the four of us. The chemistry between the four of us, we weren't able to make something great together anymore. So we decided together with all four of us that we needed to separate. And since then, with most currently with having Paul playing with us, the last three guys are just the session guys, and the guys in Trivium are Paulo, Corey, and myself. And as far as the future of any of that stuff goes, it's always been in the hands of the person at the drum throne, and it's very difficult for anybody to be able to fill the shoes of the legacy and the time that's been put away by Paulo, Corey, and myself. I mean, for me, having been in the band since 1999, Paulo since 2004, Corey since 2003, so only time will tell, and we've always felt ourselves very cohesive between the three of us and always been up for whatever the fourth player we bring to the table. But the last three guys, and I think that's something the world doesn't know, Paul, Nick, and Matt, we're all session players for Trivium.
Mm. Very cool. No, it's cool to hear, not dancing around a topic, if you will, just, giving the facts like that. That's I think that's appreciated by the fans too, to hear that stuff.
Of course, yeah. I think that's something that people don't know, and maybe it's at the fault of the three of us for never really saying it, but it's not something that we ever wanted to know. While we were playing with Matt, we didn't want to say, hey, this guy's a session player, but that was the realism of the way it was, and we wish nothing but the best for everyone that has ever played with us or worked for us or crew guys, but sometimes when it comes down to it, a session musician is the same idea of thinking of like a band sound guy. You know, it's someone that is there working at the same common goal with them, but those aren't the people in the band. And with Trivium being around as long as it has been, it's not something we're opposed to having, you know, another member in the band. But I think the guy that said it the best, I think it was a year or two ago, was Corey Taylor, when he was talking about when they had Jay and B-Man playing with them. He said it's up to these guys to determine where they're going to be. They have to put the work in, and that's the same thing. I mean, that's paraphrasing him, but that's the same way I feel with us. The amount of time and energy and work that Trivium, who's the three of us, it's pretty big shoes to fill, and we're not closing that opportunity off, but it's always been a matter of seeing what a person can bring to the table for the band.
Right. No, it's very cool to have that, you know, that it's refreshing, quite honestly, to have that honesty, you know, in somebody saying, okay, here's how it is. And, you know, you don't get that a lot with bands. I mean, they're like, oh, put out a press release or something and then just, you know, avoid the topic, if you will. But, no, I appreciate hearing that.
Definitely.
That's very cool.
Of course, man. Yeah, thank you.
But, well, let me see, Matt, with kind of wrapping things up with you here. I know you guys are off to Europe soon, and I guess some downtime. I mean, is it too soon to be looking into any other projects in 2017? I mean, what's that like?
As far as Trivium, there are no current plans of making anything new. Obviously, we will, but there's nothing really on our radar right now. Right now, it's just a matter of self-practice. I mean, we just finished up band rehearsals a little while ago, keeping everything nice and tight, and now it's just daily individual practice all over park. My regiment, when we're off, it's Monday through Friday. It used to be more days, but I figured Monday through Friday, I log at least 2 to 3 hours a day of singing and 30 to like 90 minutes of guitar playing. Just treating the instrument like an athlete would, you know, of their profession. So that's something I do like this morning, or every morning, Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. I do my vocal warm-ups for an hour, and guitar warm-ups for 30 minutes of that. The second 30 minutes of that, I'm stretching while doing vocal warm-ups. And then it's off to weights or yoga, and then jiu-jitsu 5 days a week. And then when I'm home from all that, then it's full singing. So once we're done with our interview, I'll go back to full singing for like 1 to 2 hours, going over random songs of the set, make sure I work singing and screaming, and that kind of thing. So really keeping a regimented practice regimen for everything that I do. So that way when we come back as a band, it's really solid and airtight. And that's really what everyone else does. I don't think they live by like the clock like I do. But I know everyone, with the 3 of us, 4 of us, we're always jamming and practicing and making sure everything's great.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. Yeah, that's quite regimented.
Yeah, I come from, my dad is a Marine, and my mom's Japanese. So those are 2, what I consider very, very regimented cultures, and I think that's where I got it from.
Right. No, and it definitely speaks volumes when you're up on the stage, that's for sure. You could tell that there's, you know, you guys aren't just up there, you know, a loose collection of musicians. It's definitely a powerful, cohesive thing, you know. But
thanks, man. Thank you. And that's what I feel. That's why I feel like we've had the confidence there since the early days. Since we were 17, 18, we'd already put in 6, 7 years into the band. 6, 7 years of that same practice ethic that we've had since the beginning of putting in as much time as possible, so that when we're up on stage, there's nothing to think about. When you're up on stage, it's basically muscle memory. Same thing like athletes. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm a hobby jiu-jitsu athlete. But if you think of people who play sports professionally, they put all that practice time in, so for when the game happens, they don't have to think about it. Everything's been rehearsed and drilled, and it's just a matter of doing what you've been practicing.